Internet of Things marketplace leader Clear Object has been acquired. What it means for the high-profile Fisher's tech company that has been at the forefront of the state's IoT movement. And she could be the only person in Indiana doing this. We'll introduce you to graphic recorder Julia Reich, who makes giant life drawings during meetings and presentations. She's caught the attention of big names from Roche to Rose Holman. Details on those stories and much more ahead on this edition of Inside Indiana Business.
Stand by for top of show with music full. Stand by D1 Sound, sponsored open with music. Stand by camera 3 with Gary. We're out in 5, 4, 3, 2, dissolve, cue Gary.
Hello and welcome to Inside Indiana Business. I'm Gary Dick. Well, as Indy 11 seeks to join Major League Soccer, it's also renewed plans for a new soccer stadium. The $550 million 11 Park proposal calls for, quote, transformational a project with a public plaza, office, retail, apartments, a hotel, all anchored by a 20,000-seat soccer stadium. And for more on why Indy 11 leadership believes this proposal has legs, let's talk now with team owner Ursal Ozdemir and the new CEO of the organization, Greg Strimblon. Gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having us.
Ursal, some news you're breaking here on the show and late in the week. Expanding your ownership group. You have been the sole owner. You're adding 7 names to the group from all over the state of Indiana, Fort Wayne, Evansville, Central Indiana. What's that all about?
Well, our logo is soccer is world's game, Indy 11's world's game in Indiana's team, and we wanted to make sure that we bring an ownership group that represents the state, and all these folks live and work in Indiana, and they care about the state, and they're going to help us to continue to build the Indy 11 brand around the state. Yeah,
that's Brian Bowers, the president of IU Health in Fort Wayne, Chris Traylor from Traylor Capital in Evansville, Quinn Ricker from Ricker Oil, just a few of those names. I mentioned this project, big project, $550 million in total, about $150 million for the stadium, $400 million of private development. Where do things stand right now?
Well, we have a legislation represented by Senator Sandlin, Indianapolis, and the request this time is completely different than what we did 3 years ago. We had a House bill passed in 2015, as well as a Senate bill, different bills. We knew that there was a support because this Indianapolis is a sports town, and the soccer is the world's game and it's been growing. But we also heard that taxpayers are tired of just building publicly owned, financed, and operated stadiums. So this time we came back completely different proposal, a project called 11 Park. It's a neighborhood transformational project. A stadium is actually a smaller component of the whole project, which will take a part of a town and multiple sites around the city is considered, that currently doesn't generate any taxes of any sort, no jobs, no property taxes. And we will privately go develop, invest, and build the hotel, apartments, and retail and office buildings. And our request is that enabling legislation by the state legislator to able to work with the city of Indianapolis in the next 2 years with the right site, with the neighbor input, and using the future, some of the future taxes will generate from our private development to build a publicly owned stadium, as well as it will be publicly bid, publicly built. We won't be involved in that part of the project going forward.
All right, Greg, you're coming to Indiana from Canada. You were with CBC Sports in Canada. This project was part of what attracted you here.
Absolutely. I think it's the time. Obviously, working with great ownership, I think it's fraught with opportunity. I think it's going to be an incredible legacy facility. And as I said to you off camera, a little bit biased, obviously, by one of the items within the overall development, but very, very excited for the team and the long-term sustainability for Indy 11.
You have major background in sports in Canada and beyond. As you look at this proposal, you see real opportunity.
I really do. I think it's extremely unique in the fact that it's not reliant on taxpayers to really do it, which in so many other communities has been. I think that's what's a difference maker for it. I think it's going to be very, very attractive to Indianapolis and the entire state, quite frankly.
But part of the legislation that was submitted that you mentioned would create a sports development district for that project. Ursal, as you look at sites, one of the sites publicly has been talked about is the old Broad Ripple High School area in the Broad Ripple Village. There are other sites sites as well. Give us your take right now on the potential for locations.
Obviously, we are going to be investing, and this is a $550 million project. We need to make sure that we're going to the areas that is going to be sustainable, able to develop this privately, it's financeable. So we believe that it should be in Indianapolis. We have requests from outside Indianapolis as well. It's the right thing basically to do. But the decision really where it will be is going to be have to with the local government, with the city and council leaders to decide. And technically, if we have 2 years to figure this out. So we want to go to places that neighborhood wants us. We want to go to places that we're going to make a major neighborhood transformational difference. And this will be an anchor for the area to come bigger and better. And studies done like as late as Cobb County, which built Atlanta Braves and then Battery Park. The Chamber of Commerce did a study recently showing that residential values went up to 50%, commercial values went up 20 to 50%. So we really believe that we'll have a major impact whatever we do, but we're going to have those discussions, in the upcoming months in public. All
right, very good. Ursal Ozdemir, owner of the Indy 11 franchise. Greg Stremlaw, the new CEO, and welcome to Indiana as well.
Thank you so much.
To you, Greg. We'll be following the story.
Thank you for having us. Appreciate it.
Well, still ahead, the Indy Chamber has unveiled its legislative agenda, calling it a blueprint for a stronger economy. We'll take a closer look at priorities. But first, Clear Object is one of Indiana's biggest tech success stories, recently acquired. CEO John McDonald here to talk about the deal and its impact. It's time now to go inside innovation, brought to you by DMI, mobilizing enterprises for the connected world. Well, estimates place the potential value of the global Internet of Things market in the trillions of dollars. That's certainly welcoming news for Fishers-based IoT company Clear Object, which was recently acquired by Aegis Capital Partners and ABS Capital Partners. CEO John McDonald says the move will mean good things for the company and the Indy tech sector, and he's here to explain. John, welcome to the program. As always, and congratulations on the deal.
Thanks, Gary. It was really awesome.
Everyone in the tech sector knows of Clear Object and what you do, but for those who don't, you're in the Internet of Things space. Give us the thumbnail model at Clear Object.
It's really simple and straightforward. We're about to enter the data-driven economy, a digital economy, and every company that makes things, move things, and grows things has to have digital products that enhance the product that they make in the marketplace. And that's what we do. We help them design, build it, and run those things so that they can be competitive now and in the future have the value of that data stream for the benefit of their business.
Talk about the deal to acquire majority interest in Clear Object. How did it come about?
Well, it's been 2 years since our board met to decide how we want to take a path forward. When you have a lot of small investors in your company, they basically don't want you to lose their money and they want you to grow, but at a certain point it becomes something that sort of holds you back. As you want to make big moves, acquisitions, bold new businesses that you want to go into, you need a capital partner that basically is ready to move with you. And so as a result, a lot of companies go through a process like ours to find somebody to come in and replace the initial investors with somebody else. Frequently, though, that ends up with a purchase by a strategic buyer who is buying you for a strategic reason, thus the name strategic buyer. You have a product or a technology or a team that they want, and oftentimes that means the logo comes off the wall and people wander away and the like. We did something distinctly different here, which was to look for a private equity firm to replace the initial investor so that we could stay right here in central Indiana and grow this business. And they're very excited about that because this is where these customers are at.
So you're keeping an ownership stake
yes, I am.
In the company. And also you mentioned growing, you're adding people, adding workers.
Yes, we had 4 people start on Monday, and now it's all about grow, and scale the company as fast as we possibly can.
As you look at growth opportunities, where are those specifically, those opportunities as you look going forward?
Yeah, it's really about helping these companies take these physical products, simple things, igniters, switches, other sorts of stuff that they do for the automotive industry or for manufacturing, and getting data from them and realizing the value of that data. Everyone has to do that, and we're waking up all over Indiana and the Midwest and understanding the importance of that and making our products competitive in the global marketplace. And we're just happy to be here and helping companies do that.
And is that success of Clear Object, of others who have recently been acquired or merged? There have been a number of deals happening here in the last 6 months or so. Is that a positive thing? Do you see that as shining a positive light on the ecosystem, if you will?
Well, certainly it's real that we're getting attention from other places in the country and the world. What's unfortunate about a lot of those things is that unless those companies are funded by local venture capital, when they exit, the proceeds from those transactions go somewhere else and not here. And we don't have that virtuous cycle of recycling dollars. So that's why it's so important for us to build up our venture capital ecosystem here in Indiana so that that money comes right back here.
Only have about 30 seconds. You're very active in the tech community, including with the formation of basically a legislative group to push for Technology Association. You're out with your agenda for the legislature.
Yes, fresh out of the kitchen. And one of those things is this venture capital thing and expanding venture capital tax credits to help people who are high net worth individuals, angels, plow that money right back into our companies. Very interested in this hate crimes legislation, time to get that right. And also we need to be looking at all the sense of places that we have in our ecosystem and make sure that this is a great place to grow, build, and do business in the tech economy here. Okay, John McDonald, congratulations, CEO at Clear Object. It just recently acquired, and we'll look forward to following the story. Thanks, Gary.
All right. Well, here's what's on tap now in tech news, served up by Sun King, communications workflow software company, Carano, which formed more than 5 years ago from Axia Technology Partners, expanding in central Indiana with plans to add 140 jobs. The company says it will invest more than $5 million to establish Indianapolis as its company headquarters. Meanwhile, Axia has announced plans for a national expansion. The company says it is targeting managed service providers throughout the U.S. for acquisition, looking to open offices in Chicago, Denver, Seattle, L.A., Orlando, and New York in the next year. A recently launched sports tech accelerator has its first leader. The Indiana Sports Corporation says Jordan Fleigel, the founder of sports tech startup CoachUp.com and co-chief executive officer of Draft.com, will serve as managing director of Techstars Sports Accelerator, powered by Indy. And for Tech News 24/7, be sure to check out InsideIndianaBusiness.com. Still ahead, about 2 decades ago, she started her own company, Stone Soup Creative, and recently found a new way to use her graphic design talents to help corporations, organizations, and colleges. We'll explain how graphic recording works. But next, the Indy Chamber has unveiled its legislative agenda for 2019. Mark Fisher, the Chamber's Chief Policy Officer, is here to talk ambitious priorities. Here's what's making news now around Indiana, brought to you by your Indiana Pacers. Well, sellout events like the Garth Brooks concert and NHL Winter Classic have drawn record crowds in and around Notre Dame Stadium recently. That's helping to boost business for local hotels and also increase economic activity. Visit South Bend, Mishawaka reports hotel occupancy in the county was up more than 300% year over year in 2018. Fair Oaks Farm celebrating the opening of its $15 million on-campus hotel. The barn-themed Fairfield Inn and Suites by Marriott features 99 rooms, including some custom-designed suites. The hotel directly attached to the Farmhouse restaurant at Fair Oaks. And 2 student-run manufacturing businesses have launched in southern Indiana. Eagle Manufacturing at Brown County High School in Nashville and Lion Manufacturing at Lagodi High School in Martin County are designed to give students hands-on real-world experience. The businesses funded with grants from Bloomington-based nonprofit Regional Opportunity Initiatives, Inc. Well, early childhood education, hate crimes legislation, an increase to the state's cigarette tax. Those are just some of the Indy Chamber's top legislative priorities. The Chamber also putting a focus on new redevelopment incentives and regional economic development. For more, let's chat now with Chief Policy Officer Mark Fisher. And Mark, as always, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
I ticked off some of those key issues on the agenda. One of them, bias crimes, hate crimes legislation. Would you say that's at the top of the agenda?
Certainly, that's what's getting a lot of the attention. It's a top priority for us to have a comprehensive, enumerated bias crimes bill. So that's that'll be one of those issues that will last all session long.
Yeah, to some people who question why it's so important for business, why it's so important for talent attraction.
We have to make it very clear that Indiana and Central Indiana are welcoming and open. Our globally competitive companies need talent. We're not as competitive as our peer cities for talent from outside the state and globally, and so we need to make very clear that we are a welcoming state, and that is having an enumerated and comprehensive bias crimes bill will go a long way in making that case.
Indiana, one of 5 states without that specific legislation. Early childhood education has been a big business issue for a number of years. How do you see that that play out at the State House this year?
Yeah, you know, still a lot of discussions there. You know, as we've looked to expand it statewide, there are counties that have excess capacity and there are counties that have excess demand. So I think there's going to be a lot of discussion about how we even that out and make sure that we're meeting the needs of the counties that have the excess demand.
Another business issue, some people are surprised, but the health of the state. Unfortunately, we don't rank very highly when it comes to things like obesity and smoking, those types of things. The Indy Chamber, as the state chamber, supports this $2 increase per pack on cigarettes.
And many chambers across the state as well. You know, we've laid very solid foundations as a state from a cost and regulatory perspective, but we have some, you know, kind of long-term headwinds like the health of our workforce. If we don't get ahead of this, it's going to hamper our ability to continue to grow as a state and a region.
All right, one thing, you mentioned a region and a continued focus on regional economic development and really focusing, the Amazon proposal was more of a regional
Absolutely. So you had Mayor Fadness on here talking about his regional investment hubs. There's a lot of discussion about a redevelopment tax credit that the governor's championed. It's really focusing on not just a people-based strategy, but a place-based strategy to make us more attractive for that talent, those talent efforts.
Okay, very quickly, the chamber is a big supporter of mass transit. The Red Line, anybody who's been in and around downtown, seen a lot of construction, getting close on that. Or closer.
Close. It's, you know, you're seeing the stations come out of the ground. Hopefully we'll have that open by late August, early September, and that will also be when the entire system redesign comes into place, so around the Red Line, which is really the spine of the system. All
right, we'll be following that as well. Mark Fisher from the Indy Chamber. Big agenda at the State House. I know you'll be very busy as always.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, coming up next, the founder of Terre Haute-based Stone Soup Creative is using graphic recording to draw ideas at live presentations to help people retain more content. Julia Reich will explain how it works. There she is in the Inside Indiana Business Social Media Lounge, presented by the seasoned commercial bankers at Star Bank, getting to know you and your business. Well, have you heard of graphic recording? Julia Reich may be the only person in Indiana who really knows what it means. When an organization has a strategy meeting or a conference, she's at the front of the room making a giant life drawing of the group's conversation or presentation. Her clients include Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology, Roche, Cummins, and others. And for more on what graphic recording is all about, let's talk now with Stone Soup Creative founder Julia Reich. And Julia, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
You are located in Launch, Terre Haute, which is a great accelerator doing some really cool things in Vigo County. Stone Soup Creative is a graphic design firm, right? Mm-hmm. Now, in terms of graphic recording, this is something you learned about, a couple of years ago?
That's right.
Yeah. How'd you learn about it?
You know, I can't even remember how I heard about it, but once I did, it was like this aha moment where I said to myself, I could really do that.
Yeah, and it's graphic recording, it really is a good descriptor of what it is. So essentially, you go to work for a company, you will be in a meeting or a presentation, and you'll be graphically kind of dictating what's happening in pictures and words. We're seeing some great video right now on the screen. Talk about the whole process and what it's all about.
Well, you know, it's not just about drawing, even though it looks like what I'm doing is only drawing. What it also involves is I'm doing a lot of listening, and I'm doing a lot of thinking, and I'm trying to capture everyone's ideas and also make themes and connections and hopefully see the bigger picture and bring value to that meeting.
Well, you talk about value. What is the value proposition for the company or organization who you're doing this for?
Well, I believe that it really makes people more engaged in the meeting or the presentation because they're seeing their ideas come to life. Everyone has a voice when I capture it on the poster.
Now, what about in terms of kind of content retention and the impact that these meetings have with the graphic recording?
Well, I think that people remember things more when they see pictures than when they just listen to words. I think those two combined really lead to a lot of engagement and comprehension.
This is a concept that started on the coasts. Don't know of anybody else in Indiana, right? Not many people in the Midwest. How do you see growth, or where do you see growth opportunities for this type of thing?
Oh my gosh, it's endless. So, I mean, I know that there are definitely firms and people in Chicago who are doing this, but I travel a lot to do this work. So even though I'm working in Terre Haute, I'm working in Indianapolis, I travel to Chicago, Nashville, St. Louis, and beyond.
What's the reaction? What's kind of the feedback you're getting? Because it sounds like, and I mentioned some of the companies, Lilly, Cummins, Heritage Environmental Group, Roche, a number of big name companies. What's the feedback you're getting from them?
Well, the best kind of feedback I can get is if I'm helping groups innovate and make meaning in their meetings. So the best kind of feedback I can get is if someone comes up to me and says, wow, I really understood that presentation or what was being said in a more complete way than I did before, because I was watching what you were drawing and writing and capturing at our event.
And then you leave. So the company or organization physically gets to keep what you create.
That's right. Yeah.
Good. So you see growth opportunities then going forward for the company.
Yeah.
All right. Very good. It's called graphic recording, as the video showed there. Very cool concept that is growing here in Indiana, growing in the Wabash Valley and Terre Haute at Stone Soup Creative. And Julia Reich, thanks for being here. We'll look forward to following the story.
Thank you.
All right. Well, as we wrap up this week, a reminder to subscribe to the Inside Indiana Business Television podcast. It is a condensed version of the TV show, perfect for the ride to work, the airport, or perhaps that grind on the treadmill. The IIB podcast is free. Just search for Inside Indiana Business at your podcast page or follow the links on our social media pages and website. Well, coming up, a Hobart-based travel agency taking people with memory loss on unique dementia-friendly cruises around the world. In the business of health, learn more about these unique excursions. Plus, Indianapolis-based education nonprofit The Mind Trust has had a big 3 weeks. We'll tell you about that when we return.
Stand by D1 Sound, sponsored open with music. Stand by camera 3 with Gary. We're out in 5, 4, 3, 2, dissolve, cue Gary.
It's time now for the Business of Health, brought to you by Hendricks Regional Health. Well, next month, some Hoosiers are setting sail on a vacation with a unique purpose. They'll be on a cruise catering to people living with dementia or other forms of memory loss. Business of Health reporter Kylie Valletta has more. Kylie.
Thank you very much, Gary. 2 Indiana companies are teaming up to encourage people with dementia, their caregivers, and loved ones to get away together. Elite Cruises and Vacations is a travel agency in Hobart that specializes in Alzheimer's and dementia-friendly cruises. The largest health care provider for seniors in Indiana, American Senior Communities, understands the value of these trips. It's partnering with the agency to help families live life to the fullest despite a memory diagnosis. Owner of Elite Cruises and Vacations, Kathy Schoaf, and Melanie Perry, Director of Memory Care Support Services at American Senior Care, joins us now. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you for having us. Thanks so much.
Kathy, let's start with you. You have an interesting background. You used to be a nurse, and then you started your own travel agency. Tell us how you made that leap and why you saw a need for this.
Well, I am an RN, and I've been an RN for 30 plus years. I worked in senior living, home health, hospice, many different venues. I just decided that there had to be a way to let clients and their loved ones still enjoy life. All of us have something wrong with us, and the clients with cognitive impairment are no different. And just wanted to create an experience so that everyone can enjoy. The clients with memory loss don't necessarily remember all of what happened the next day, but the families, the loved ones, the caregivers, they have that memory for the rest of their life.
That's right. So the people with dementia, they won't have memories of the cruise in the traditional sense that the rest of us do. So is this really a lesson about living in the moment?
It is. It's an opportunity to let them experience, and they still do experience that joy and happiness of seeing things like the Panama Canal or having their feet in the Atlantic Ocean one more time. They do experience the happiness, the joy, and it's seen on their faces as we treasure those moments with them and their families.
And Melanie, your company, American Senior Communities, you're alerting all of your residents with memory care diagnoses about this opportunity, alerting their families. And you say it lines up well with a shift in your industry toward wellness-based care.
Absolutely. There is a demonstrative shift in the long-term care profession, particularly in the world of dementia care, in that we realize that if we can concentrate on the abilities that are still remaining and are still very vital within the residents that we serve and the elders that we serve, that it really lends itself to a much richer quality of life than if we were to do what we used to traditionally do, which was to concentrate on the deficits. So the wellness-based model helps us to serve individuals and be the very best that they can be within a greater challenge such as dementia, going through the midst of that. So Kathy's service really dovetailed very nicely with that wellness-based approach that we do practice at American Senior Communities.
And people with dementia still experience emotion, and you say that even new experiences are still healthy for their brain.
Absolutely. For any of our brains, we know that novelty and new experiences and stimulation are only beneficial for the brain. And so even an individual going through a dementia journey still will experience those benefits. So a new location, new surroundings, new life experiences are very, very healthy for the individual's brain, not only to help it maintain its healthiest state possible, but also it provides that affective or emotional benefit as well. And so we just want our residents to experience this wonderful, wonderful service that Kathy is offering.
And Kathy, you don't just do dementia-friendly cruises. You focus on more than that, other specialized needs.
Well, I'm a fully certified special needs agency, but I travel with a whole team of professionals. I don't pretend as one RN to take care of 50 people in the Panama Canal. Have a full team supporting me. Other RNs, mobility specialists, pharmacists, dentists, Zumba specialist. So we deal with managing the situations and the challenges with highly trained professionals that are available to the clients 24/7.
Taking a lot of the headache and the logistics out of these vacations for families,
Absolutely.
making it possible. Melanie, Kathy, thank you both for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
Gary, back to you.
All right, Kylie, thank you. Well, education researchers at Stanford University have released the strongest evidence to date that Indianapolis's charter schools and innovation network schools are making dramatic learning gains for students. In our Eye on Education segment this week, the Mind Trust's CEO Brandon Brown and Senior Vice President of Community Engagement Shannon Williams are here to break down the study and also explain how grants totaling more than $24 million will benefit schools and students. Welcome to the program.
Hey, thank you so much for having us.
First of all, the Mind Trust. For those who don't know, many and everyone in the education space knows of the Mind Trust. Give us the thumbnail model about behind the Mind Trust.
Yeah, so we are a local education nonprofit. We're in our 13th year with a mission to ensure that every single kid in our city has access to a great school. We do that through three major strategies. One is we work to launch new schools. Two is we support existing schools. And three is we really try to engage the community.
Okay, this has been a big 3 weeks for the organization on a number of fronts. First of all, and I mentioned a study from Stanford University that was recently released, providing evidence that the city's charter schools and these innovation network schools are making big gains.
Yeah, that's right. So this is one of many recent studies from Stanford University on the performance of schools in Indianapolis. And what we find is that charter schools and innovation network schools are achieving dramatic gains for students. In fact, between 77 and 90 additional learning days in both English and math relative to their peers in local schools. And when you compound that over the life of a K-12 education, that's several additional years that many of our kids are receiving because they have access to these options.
And some of the findings also include big gains for minority students as well.
Yeah, so African Americans, Hispanics, and low-income students showed tremendous gains in that area, and so we're really excited about that. And while there is a lot of work and a lot of things have been accomplished, we still have a lot more to do, but super excited. These gains are tremendous and mean a lot to the minority community in particular.
Yeah. Another big milestone or big event for the Mind Trust, the single largest grant in your 13-year history. So a lot of money coming into the organization. Talk about that and how that money will be used.
Yeah, so we received $24 million in grants in the past month or two, and one of those was an $18 million investment from a new national organization called the City Fund, which we think is another indication that the work in Indianapolis is not only significant for our community, but it's really starting to be nationally significant. And cities across the country are actually looking at our city right now as a model for how cities across the country can reform their education systems. Lilly Endowment and the local Fairbanks Foundation also gave meaningful gifts as well. So we think that our local philanthropic community is really excited about this work as well.
Yeah. As you continue to grow, you're launching a search for a community leader to launch this independent parent-led education and advocacy organization. Shanna, talk about that, what the organization really is going to be all about.
Sure. So we've launched an Education Entrepreneur Fellowship, and we're looking for an individual to lead, as you said, a parent-led organization. The organization will be totally independent and autonomous, and it will really work to empower parents to really advocate for the changes they believe are needed in education for children.
Yeah, so you'll be looking for someone to actually lead that organization.
Yeah, so they will design and ultimately launch the organization.
Okay, as we wrap up, and Brandon, you touched on this, but these developments we're talking about this week and some other things, these studies, really contribute to this whole mindset that Indianapolis is kind of ground zero in this whole education reform movement.
That's right. So when you think about the 20 years of reform that has happened in this city and the progress that we're seeing for kids, especially for low-income students and students of color, it is transforming the education system here locally, and is going to have ramifications across the country for a long time.
All right, big news, big funding, and other news at the Mind Trust based here in Indianapolis. Brandon Brown and Shannon Williams, thank you both for being here. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, well, still ahead, our insiders will sound off on some of the week's big stories. But first, IndyCar has a new multi-year partnership with tech giant NTT. As we go inside Indiana sports, what that new sponsorship means for IndyCar on the track and off. That's next. Well, the IndyCar Series has a new title sponsor, a new TV partner, and hopefully some renewed momentum as the opening race in March approaches. Bill Benner has more in this week's Inside Indiana Sports. Bill?
Gary, thanks. Well, the series capped a busy and productive offseason earlier this month when it was announced that global technology firm NTT would become the new sponsor, replacing Verizon. And of course, already on board is NBC Sports as the new television sponsor. So what does it all portend? Here to provide perspective is Kurt Cavan, IndyCar's Vice President of Communications. And Kurt, welcome to the show. And yeah, this is very big, very positive news. Yeah. There was a kind of that downtime. Everybody was wondering who the new sponsor of the series would be, and it's NTT. Tell us a little bit about these guys.
Well, NTT's one of the real giants in terms of technological services and in terms of Fortune 500 companies, and right at the edge of top 50 in the world. So they bring a real presence globally, and they want to really improve their stature in North America. So that's the impetus of this award. But you use the word cap the offseason. We still got more to come. I think in the coming week or so, you'll hear more that helps Indy 500 as well.
And we'll get to that in a second. A Japanese-based company, but I had no idea, 150 years in existence, started off as a telegraph operator, and here they are with IndyCar.
Yeah, it really is a giant in the industry, and they have a lot of ways they can help IndyCar, largely in terms of business to business and bringing their friends and their partners to the sport. You may not see a Super Bowl ad per se, but you're going to see customers coming in of theirs that might be interested in helping the ecosystem. Anything that helps the teams or the manufacturers or the drivers even, much less the series, is good for all of us.
And their North American unit had already been aboard with Ganassi Racing.
That's right, and that continues for multiple years. That was one of our requirements, that NTT Data would continue with Chip Ganassi Racing.
And you didn't announce terms, but a multi-year agreement, so these guys are not just coming in and taking off. I mean,
yeah, this is kind of a real commitment for them. This is an important outreach, and this is really their only real North American sports outreach, so I think that's important in this deal as well.
As a prelude, before the NTT announcement, NBC announced its television schedule, and another big jump for the series, with 8 of the races being carried on NBC and 9 from the 17-car series or 17 race series going on NBC-SM, but that's another huge.
Yeah, that's a big increase in terms of network races for IndyCar. Last year there were 5 on ABC. Now there goes to 8 on NBC, and the NBC reach will go on all platforms, and they'll have more of a driving force to encourage this viewership because they have total control of the broadcast.
And much to my delight and surprise, I have to admit, I was watching an NFL playoff game, and there was a promo for the Indy 500. That's terrific.
Yeah, they're in pretty heavy. The other one I would add is Speedway. Just recently joined as the official convenience store, which gives 4,000 platforms across the country to showcase IndyCar, which is huge for the sport, plus the fuel that all the teams will use.
You teased an announcement coming. We do not yet have a presenting sponsor for the Indy 500, but we may have one shortly. And you're going to tell us right now who it is.
Right now who it is. The Mark Miles, the CEO of Hallman & Company, which is IndyCar and the Speedway, has said on a couple occasions that one is coming and a presenting sponsor is coming. And so that announcement will be before we get on track. We are on track early next month, and you'll see it soon.
As we wrap up, the season starts March 10th at St. Pete. 2 new circuits on the series, Laguna and Circuit of Americas, and both of them will entertain IndyCar testing sessions coming up.
Right, Laguna Seca, which is in Monterey, which is kind of a good place to go, and in any time of the year is coming up on February 8th, and then we go to Circuit of the Americas, which is in Austin, a beautiful market for us to be in, a world-class racetrack, and we'll be there on the 11th of February and race there then in early March or mid-March.
March 10th, St. Pete. It all starts with the NTT IndyCar Series. Kirk Cavan, Vice President of Communications for IndyCar. Thanks for being on the show, and we wish you the best. Gary, back to you.
All right, Bill, thank you. Well, more than 1,200 community leaders and tourism executives convened this week for Visit Indy's annual State of Tourism. Our Mary Rachel Redmond was there and has details.
Visit Indy is on a roll. At its annual State of Tourism event this week, the city's official destination marketing organization touted 7 straight years of record visitor spending in the Circle City, boosting the region's economy. And not only that, a record 28.8 million visitors added $5.4 billion to Indy's economy in 2017 alone. Those same visitors also generated $725 million in state and local taxes. Numbers that add up to a big win for Indy's tourism industry.
If you think back in the history of Indianapolis, who would have thought that that number of visitors from all over the world would choose to select to come to Indianapolis? In our 95-year history, in terms of booking conventions, 2018 was number 2 in terms of the quantity of conventions that we booked and put into the city's pipeline. We're proud of the record-setting 81,600 full-time equivalent jobs now supported by our hospitality industry. Record-setting number of jobs, people earning paychecks, being able to have tourism as their support system for employment. We're very proud of that, and that's really why we do what we do.
And speaking of breaking records, no one better to have on hand at this year's State of Tourism than former Colts quarterback Peyton Manning, who received the city's highest tourism honor, the Bill McGowan Leadership Award, for his contributions in raising Indy's national profile and his efforts in establishing Lucas Oil Stadium as a premier venue.
All the talk and the work and the efforts to get that stadium, to bring it to fruition, was very special. So just the significance of it, of what it was going to mean to this city. I mean, hosting a Super Bowl here in Indianapolis, and, you know, the Final Fours, and you got the national championship coming up.
Visit Indy's tourism master plan for 2019 and beyond.
There's a lot of exciting things happening. Our tourism master plan with the White River development, with the Indiana Convention Center expansion, potentially 2 new hotel towers at Pan Am Plaza. That's really moving those things along, because you need to start doing today what you need to do to make 2023, 2024, 2025 better.
Mary Rachel Redmond, Inside Indiana Business.
All right, Mary Rachel, thank you. Well, coming up, our insiders are getting warmed up to sound off on priorities at the State House. South Bend's mayor launching a presidential run, and a lot more. There they are in the Inside Indiana Business Social Media Lounge, presented by the seasoned commercial bankers at Starbank, getting to know you and your business. Well, each week, a group of insiders joins me to offer perspective on some of the week's top stories. This week, sounding off on record tourism numbers in Indianapolis. Pete Buttigieg throws his hat into the 2020 presidential discussion, and you can now stay overnight at the state's biggest agritourism destination. Our insiders this week are Visit Indy Senior Vice President of Marketing and Communications, Chris Gall. Also, Short Strategy Group Chairman and CEO Frank Short. and Women's Fund of Central Indiana Executive Director Jennifer Pope Baker. And welcome one and all to the Insiders for another edition. And Chris, we will certainly lead off with you because the Visit Indy had a big week this week, your annual meeting where you touted more record tourism numbers. This is, tourism continuing on a roll in Central Indiana. What's it all about?
Well, thanks. Yeah, you look back at the history of our city, now almost 200 years, record-setting number of visitors, 28 million. 11% of those are international visitors. That's an uptick. We're most proud of the fact that now tourism employs 81,600 for full-time paychecks, again, depending on tourism. We hosted about 700 conventions, up from about 550, 560. So it was a really strong year for tourism, but again, that jobs number is one we're really proud of.
And in the pipeline, the momentum seems to be continuing as you look 19, 20, and on.
The convention we booked last year, the furthest out was for 2026. We're prospecting for 2031. And so convention sold today. We'll meet that far out. It was the second best year in terms of future convention business in the history of our organization.
As you look at those numbers, Jennifer, and you've seen the evolution of the convention business and the tourism business in Indianapolis, it just seems to get bigger and bigger. And now, more and more improvements needed and a bigger convention center and hotel space and those types of things.
I think it's really exciting that we're at that space and that we have the opportunity to be bigger and better. And I think the announcement about the new Final Four was really exciting because when you think about how everything started and exploded, it was all with our sports in the community.
Yeah, we saw on the video there, Frank, Peyton Manning throwing a few footballs out to the crowd. He got the Bill McGowan Award. And that reminded me, as I think of Bill McGowan, and certainly he was, at the top of the list, but the people who really made decisions decades ago to help this tourism business grow into what it is.
Yeah, and I think you look at people like Bill McGowan, Michael Browning, Jim Morris, all the folks that were involved with bringing the Colts here and those issues. Bill McGowan, Peyton gave him in Jersey yesterday, number 18 with his name on it because he served as CEO for 18 years at Visit Indy. But I mean, the thing we have going in this city is that we always have people willing to step up, and that continues today, and it's been that way, for the last 30, 40 years, and that's why the trajectory is up, right, Chris?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, as you look at tourism around the state, Central Indiana certainly is a hotbed, but you look, there was news this week, Fair Oaks Farms, agritourism in the northwest part of the state, brand new hotel that just opened this week at that site, major events at Notre Dame Stadium, using Notre Dame Stadium for more than football, Garth Brooks concert, hockey. Tourism is big business around the state.
Absolutely. You go up 65 and you're going up to Fair Oak Farms. People are stopping to, have exposed their kids to the farm, and now this new hotel, which it seems like they're really pushing a big wedding business there too, which I think is interesting. And lots of exciting news out of South Bend right now.
Yeah, and as you look around the state quickly, Chris, but that's people getting creative. I mentioned the Notre Dame example of doing different things.
That stadium's iconic. If you can diversify your portfolio within, like Garth Brooks in the rain, that was amazingly successful. Fair Oaks Farms is only 100 miles from downtown Indianapolis. Chicago's a big tourism market for Indianapolis and vice versa, so that's a logical stopover with agro-tourism on the rise.
All right, let's switch gears to politics. The big political news this week centered on South Bend. Mayor Pete Buttigieg had been rumored, Frank, for some time, and he made it official. He's going to run for president in 2020.
Yeah, and, certainly he starts out as a, long shot, clearly. But, he's a millennial who's going to be about a third of the primary voters in 2020. He's a Rhodes Scholar. He's an Afghan war vet. When he took over, in South Bend, things were on the downside. He's done great things in his 2 terms there. Very intelligent guy. And, people say, well, 4 years before Barack Obama became president, nobody knew who he was. He was a state senator in the state of Illinois. So,
how many people are going to be running for the Democrat nomination?
Right now, there's about 20.
I was going to say, it's
but
going to be a big
it's
number.
Interesting. In 2016, when the Democrats, when it was Hillary and Barack, you had to raise about $5 to $10 million a month because there's just 2 people. When there's this many people in the field, you only have to raise about $500,000. You just have to float until you get your moment in the sun, and then see if you catch on when it's your turn. So, but Pete's building an apparatus. He'll do a great job running a campaign. He's bought, he's hired staff already and everything. So it'll be interesting to watch the story.
Interesting also to watch the story of Indy 11 in Indianapolis's professional sports franchise. Chris, a new stadium proposal is out from the ownership group, which has expanded. Just news breaking today that the Indy 11 ownership team will expand by 7. And Ursal Ozdemir was on the show earlier and talked about plans. $550 million deal, stadium, mixed-use development. As you look at the plan, much different than what they put forth a couple of years ago.
I think that's important, that it is much different. And certainly we're supportive. We know that sports rules here in Indianapolis, they've been thoughtful and meaningful in the way they're designing it and thinking about other than soccer events and mixed use around it. So hopefully that lands and can be used and bring even more sports tourism and residential quality of life because of the growing soccer population.
Yeah, well, as you look at soccer, Indianapolis is a city that made its name largely on sports. Early with the 500, now so many other events. Jennifer, as you look at it, how important is it, you think, for this to happen? Soccer is, as you mentioned, a sport with millennial support, and young professionals really like it. Is it something that you see as would be a positive for this whole talent attraction?
I think it's a huge positive, and give Ursal credit. He has doing everything he can to make us love soccer. And with this 11 park, with the mixed use, and he's building in new constituents. But you go to those games, they're fun, and they're full of young people. And the kids love to go. It's good sports. I think it'd be good for our community.
Yeah, switching gears again to the State House. A number of items on the agenda, the kind of hot button items. One of them, hate crimes legislation. We see the Indy Chambers come out with their agenda. That's certainly at or near the top. Many business organizations talking about the importance of this happening. As you look at this legislation, Indiana, one of 5 states without specific hate crimes or bias legislation, how important is it that this happen when it comes to business development and, again, talent attraction and retention?
It's extraordinary. We have to do this, and it's embarrassing that where we are, and the governor's behind it, and the business community is behind it, and certainly it has to impact the work that you do. And we have to get that done. It has to be the #1 thing.
Let's please not have RFRA 2.0. We are lagging in this realm. We're leading in many others. This is a no-brainer. Put it in, get it done, be inclusive. We are a hospitable state.
Yep. Don't want to end on a kind of a downer note, but the Pacers have certainly been playing well. But kind of the tough news is Victor Oladipo out for the season with a serious knee injury.
Yeah, they're going to have to rebound. This team has great chemistry. I mean, when he was out before, they played well. So hopefully we can have some folks pick it up. But it's going to be tough to lose your key player, for the rest of the season.
They're going to have to rebound. I saw what you did with that. Pacers rebound. That was good, Frank.
Yeah.
That was good. I'll give you the last word, Chris.
He's been so, we were talking earlier, he's been so upbeat on social media, Victor.
Yep.
I think his enthusiasm will continue. Don't be surprised if he's in stadium cheering on the crowd.
That'd be great. Nate McMillan said late in the week, next man up. So we'll see where it goes. Frank Short, Jennifer Pope Baker, also Chris Gall. Thanks one and all for being here, and we'll be right back after this. Coming up next week, Purdue Athletic Director Mike Bobinski will be here to share next steps on a major renovation of Ross-Ade Stadium, keeping Jeff Brom, and the big business of college sports. Plus, how will Indiana's housing market shape up this year? We'll get some predictions and outlook from FC Tucker Company CEO Jim Litton. Thanks for joining us this week. I'm Gary Dick. Go out and make it a successful week.
Inside Indiana Business with Gary Dick is a production of Grow Indiana Media Ventures with support from WFYI Productions.